Imagine a peaceful September morning in New York. The sun was shining, the skies were clear, and planes were gliding across the blue horizon. But within the next 102 minutes, America would face one of the darkest days in its history. Two of its tallest towers would fall, the Pentagon would be burning, and thousands of innocent lives would be lost. This is not a movie plot. This is the story of September 11th, 2001, the day the world changed forever. What's even more shocking is that the impact of that morning still touches your life today, from how you travel to the freedoms you enjoy. Say with me, because the story of 9/11 is far more chilling and far more human than most of us remember. It began like any ordinary Tuesday at 7:59 a.m. American Airlines Flight 11 took off from Boston, heading to Los Angeles with 92 people on board. But hidden among them were 5 men with a terrifying plan. Just 15 minutes after takeoff, passengers realized they were no longer passengers. They were hostages. One of them, Mohammed Atta, an Egyptian pilot specially trained for this mission, seized control of the cockpit. At 8:46 a.m., the Boeing 767 slammed into the North Tower of New York's World Trade Center. A massive fireball exploded from the building, shocking millions watching the live news. The World Trade Center had once been the tallest building in the world, the pride of New York's skyline, and now it was in flames. At first, many thought it was a tragic accident. Even President George W. and Bush, who was on his way to a school in Florida, believed the pilot might have suffered a heart attack. But just 17 minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175, also hijacked, turned sharply and crashed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center, live on television. In that instant, it was clear this was no accident. America was under attack. President Bush sat in a classroom with second-grade children reading a story called The Pet Goat, when his chief of staff leaned over and whispered in his ear, "America is under attack." Yet Bush remained seated for 7 more minutes, continuing to read with the children, a decision that would later spark heavy criticism. As the Twin Towers burned, news broke of 2 more hijackings. American Airlines Flight 77 veered off course toward Washington, D.C. at 9:37 a.m. It slammed into the Pentagon, the heart of America's military command, leaving a massive hole in the iconic building. Meanwhile, United Airlines Flight 93 was heading toward Washington as well, and it was suspected that the hijackers intended to crash it into either the White House or the U.S. Capitol. What happened aboard Flight 93 is a story of extraordinary bravery. Passengers on board used seatback phones to call their families, only to learn about the other crashes and the collapse of the Twin Towers. Realizing what was about to happen, they made a heroic decision to fight back. With nothing to lose, these passengers rushed the hijackers in a desperate bid to stop the plane from reaching its target. We may never know exactly what unfolded in that cabin, but their courage forced the hijackers to crash the plane into an empty field in Pennsylvania at 10:03 a.m. Their sacrifice saved countless lives in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, in New York, the South Tower, weakened by fire and the force of the impact, collapsed at 9:59 a.m., sending up a massive cloud of dust and debris. Just 29 minutes later, at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower also fell. Within 2 hours, both towers were gone. By afternoon, the once iconic skyline of New York was forever changed. More than 3,000 people were killed that day, and over 6,000 were injured. Among them were office workers, firefighters, travelers, parents, and children. Investigations soon pointed to Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden, with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed named as the mastermind behind the attacks. At first, bin Laden denied involvement, but in 2004 he openly admitted to orchestrating the tragedy, calling it revenge for U.S. interference in the Middle East. What followed changed the world again. The U.S. invaded Afghanistan, then Iraq, leading to 2 decades of war. Trillions of dollars were spent, thousands of soldiers and civilians lost their lives, and hatred and extremism spread across borders. Instead of ending violence, the attacks sparked a vicious cycle of revenge, proof that extremism only breeds more extremism. But the consequences of 9/11 didn't stop at politics or war. They changed the way we live. Just 6 weeks after the attacks, the U.S. government passed the Patriot Act, giving itself sweeping surveillance powers over its own citizens. Years later, whistleblower Edward Snowden revealed how the government had been secretly collecting citizens' phone records and personal data without their knowledge or consent. Airport security also changed overnight across the globe. Before 2001, air travel was far more relaxed, but after 9/11, security became strict. Full body scans, mandatory ID checks, limits on carrying liquids, reinforced cockpit doors, and even pilots being armed for their protection. Osama bin Laden had claimed he was fighting against the oppression of Muslims, but after 9/11, violence against Muslims and South Asians surged. In the U.S. alone, hate crimes against Muslims rose to 481 incidents in 2001. Even Sikhs mistaken for Muslims because of their turbans and beards were targeted. One such victim was Balbir Singh Sodhi, a Sikh man murdered in Arizona just 4 days after the attacks while planting flowers outside his gas station. Fear had gripped America, and many innocent people were wrongfully arrested and subjected to harsh treatment in the name of national security. The tragedy of 9/11 teaches us two vital lessons. First, extremism breeds extremism. Osama claimed he was taking revenge for what America had done, but in doing so, he killed thousands of innocent people. In retaliation, America invaded countries where more innocent civilians died. The cycle of revenge only blinded both sides, leaving generations to suffer. Second, never let fear blind us to reality. Governments can use fear to take away freedoms, as seen with the surveillance and the Patriot Act. And let's never allow acts of terror to strip us of our humanity and liberty. If this story moved you, share it so others too can remember the lives lost and the lessons history has left us. For more untold histories and real-life mysteries, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon, because the stories that shaped our world should never be forgotten.